Introduction. In the gleaming halls of the prestigious Galactic Academy, Professor Xyloth was a towering figure, both literally and figuratively. As a Zorganian, he stood at an impressive 8 feet tall, his elongated limbs and bulbous head marking him as a member of one of the most intellectually advanced species in the known universe. But it was Xyloth's brilliance in the field of psychology that truly set him apart. For decades, he had dedicated himself to understanding the cognitive abilities and limitations of the myriad alien species that made up the galactic community. His research was groundbreaking, his insights legendary. As Xyloth strode through the Academy's hallowed halls, young students of countless species parted before him, awed by his reputation. Xyloth paid them little mind, lost in thought about his latest project, analyzing the results of the Academy's notorious standard examination. The exam was a grueling battery of tests designed to assess a student's mastery of a wide range of subjects, from advanced mathematics to xenobiology to intergalactic history. It was notoriously difficult, with even the brightest students often struggling to achieve a passing grade. But what fascinated Xyloth most was the way different species performed on the exam. Some, like his own Zorganians, consistently scored in the top percentiles, their logical minds and eidetic memories perfectly suited to the test's rigorous demands. Others, like the empathetic Valians or the creative Quiltar, often struggled, their unique strengths ill-suited to the exam's rigid format. And then there were the humans. In the century since they had first made contact with the wider galactic community, no human had ever scored above the 40th percentile on the standard exam. It was a fact that many in the Academy saw as confirmation of humanity's intellectual inferiority, a sign that they were simply not equipped to compete on a galactic scale. Xyloth himself had long been skeptical of human potential. While he acknowledged their remarkable adaptability and tenacity, he saw little evidence of the kind of advanced cognitive abilities that mark the galaxy's elite species. But as he settled into his office and began reviewing the latest batch of exam results, Xyloth's eyes widened in shock. There, at the very top of the list, was a name he had never seen before, Jason Novak, a human name. And next to it, a score that defied belief, 99th percentile, higher than any student in the Academy's long history. Xyloth leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. How was this possible? How could a human, of all species, have achieved such a feat? There had to be some mistake, some glitch in the system. But as he dove into the data, double and triple checking every result, the truth became impossible to deny. Jason Novak, a human, had not only passed the standard exam, but had achieved a score that put him in a class of his own. Xyloth felt a sudden rush of excitement, mixed with a tinge of unease. He had built his career on understanding the limits of alien cognition. But if a human could score so highly on the standard exam, what did that say about his own theories, about everything he thought he knew? He had to meet this Jason Novak to understand how he had accomplished the impossible. Xyloth knew it would not be easy. The human was sure to be inundated with attention from every corner of the Academy. But Xyloth was determined to unravel this mystery, to learn what made this particular human so special. Little did he know that his quest for understanding would lead him down a path he never could have anticipated, one that would challenge everything he thought he knew about the nature of intelligence itself. The human student, Jason Novak, had always dreamed of the stars. Growing up on Earth, he had spent countless hours gazing up at the night sky, marveling at the vastness of the universe and wondering what wonders lay beyond his tiny blue planet. So when the opportunity arose to apply to the Galactic Academy, the most prestigious institution of higher learning in the known universe, Jason jumped at the chance. He knew it was a long shot. Humans were still relative newcomers to the galactic stage, and the Academy had a reputation for being fiercely competitive and highly selective. But Jason was nothing if not determined. He threw himself into his studies, poring over advanced textbooks on subjects ranging from quantum physics to xenolinguistics. He spent long hours in the library, absorbing everything he could about the countless alien cultures that made up the galactic community. When the day of the entrance exam finally arrived, Jason was a bundle of nerves. He knew that his performance on this test could determine the course of his entire future, a chance to prove himself on a galactic scale, or a one-way ticket back to Earth. As he sat down at the examination console and the first question flickered onto the screen, Jason took a deep breath and closed his eyes. He thought back to all the long nights of study, all the sacrifices he had made to get to this moment. He thought of the countless generations of humans who had looked up at the stars and dreamed of something more. And then he began to type. Hours later, as Jason emerged from the examination room, he felt a sense of exhaustion mixed with elation. The test had been grueling, far harder than anything he had ever faced on Earth. But somehow, he felt confident that he had done well, maybe even better than he had dared to hope. As the weeks passed and the results were tabulated, Jason threw himself into his preparations for life at the academy. He packed his bags, said goodbye to his family and friends, and boarded a shuttle bound for the gleaming spires of the academy's central campus. But nothing could have prepared him for the reaction he received when he arrived. As he stepped off the shuttle and onto the bustling campus grounds, he was met with a sea of stares and whispers from the alien students and faculty around him. At first, Jason assumed it was simply because he was human, a rare sight at the academy, and one that was sure to draw some curiosity. But as he made his way to the dormitory that would be his home for the next 4 years, he began to realize that the attention he was receiving was something more than mere novelty. It wasn't until he arrived at his room and found a message waiting for him on his personal console that he understood the true reason for the commotion. The message was from the office of the Academy's dean, congratulating him on his remarkable achievement, a score in the 99th percentile on the entrance exam, higher than any student in the school's history. Jason stared at the screen in disbelief, trying to process the magnitude of what he had accomplished. He had known he had done well on the test, but this was beyond anything he had ever imagined. As the realization sank in, Jason felt a rush of pride and excitement. He had done it. He had proven that humans could compete with the best and brightest the galaxy had to offer. He had shown that his species was more than just a footnote in the annals of galactic history. But even as he celebrated his achievement, Jason couldn't shake a creeping sense of unease. He knew that his score would put him under intense scrutiny from his fellow students and faculty, many of whom had long held prejudices against humans. He would have to work twice as hard to prove himself, to show that his success was no fluke. And he had a feeling that there were some at the academy who would stop at nothing to undermine him, to prove that humans didn't belong in the rarefied halls of the galaxy's elite. As he unpacked his bags and prepared for the challenges ahead, Jason couldn't help but wonder what the future held. He had achieved his dream of reaching the stars, but now that he was here, he realized that his journey was only just beginning. The professor's obsession. Professor Zyloff had always prided himself on his objectivity. As a scientist, he knew that the key to understanding the universe lay in the careful observation and analysis of data, untainted by emotion or bias. But as he delved deeper into the mystery of Jason Novak, the human student who had achieved the impossible, Zyloff found himself increasingly consumed by a growing obsession. At first, he told himself that he was simply fascinated by the implications of Jason's achievement. If a human could score so highly on the standard exam, what did that say about the limitations of alien cognition that Zyloff had spent his career studying? But as the days turned into weeks, and Zyloff spent more and more time poring over Jason's test results and academic records, he began to realize that his interest was becoming something more than purely scientific. He found himself thinking about the human constantly, even when he was supposed to be focused on his other work. He would catch himself staring at Jason from across the campus, trying to discern some clue to his extraordinary abilities. Zyloff knew that his behavior was bordering on the unprofessional, but he couldn't seem to help himself. He had always been driven by a need to understand, to unravel the mysteries of the universe, and Jason Novak was the greatest mystery he had ever encountered. As Zyloth's obsession grew, he began to take increasingly drastic measures to uncover Jason's secrets. He hacked into the Academy's computer systems, searching for any scrap of information that might shed light on the human's background and abilities. He even began to follow Jason around campus, observing his behavior and interactions with other students in the hopes of gleaning some insight into his thought processes. But no matter how hard Zyloth looked, he couldn't seem to find any evidence of cheating or foul play. Jason's academic record was spotless, his test results consistently exceptional across all subjects. The more Zyloth studied the human, the more he began to doubt his own long-held beliefs about the limitations of alien intelligence. If a member of a supposedly inferior species could achieve such heights, what did that say about the Zorganians, or any of the other races that had long considered themselves the galaxy's intellectual elite? As the weeks turned into months, Zyloth's colleagues began to take notice of his increasingly erratic behavior. Whispered rumors began to circulate around the Academy about the once great professor who had become consumed by his obsession with a lowly human. Some even began to wonder if Zyloth was losing his mind, if his brilliant intellect had finally cracked under the strain of trying to understand the impossible. But Zyloth paid them no heed. He was convinced that he was on the verge of a breakthrough, that if he just studied Jason long enough, he would uncover the key to his success. And so he pressed on, spending long hours in his office poring over data and surveillance footage, his once impeccable appearance becoming increasingly disheveled as he neglected his own basic needs in favor of his all-consuming quest. He knew that he was risking everything, his reputation, his career, even his own sanity. But he couldn't stop, not now, not when he was so close to understanding. He had to confront Jason directly, to demand answers to the questions that had been haunting him for so long. He had to know the truth, no matter the cost. And so, with a sense of grim determination, Zyloth began to plan his final move, a confrontation that would either provide him with the answers he sought or destroy everything he had ever worked for. Confrontation and revelation. The knock on Jason's door came late at night, startling him from a deep sleep. Groggy and disoriented, he stumbled to the door, wondering who could be visiting at such an odd hour. When he opened the door, he was shocked to see Professor Zyloth standing before him, his normally pristine robes rumpled and his eyes wild with a kind of manic intensity. "Professor?" Jason asked, confusion and concern warring on his face. "What's going on? Is everything okay?" Zyloth pushed past him into the room, his movements jerky and agitated. "No, everything is not okay," he snapped, rounding on Jason with a fierce glare. "I need answers, and I need them now." Jason took a step back, suddenly wary. He had always admired Zyloth, had even hoped to study under him one day. But the Zorganian standing before him now seemed like a different person entirely, consumed by some kind of inner turmoil. "Answers to what?" Jason asked carefully, trying to keep his voice calm and level. "To how you did it," Zyloth hissed, his voice low and intense. "How you achieved the impossible. How a human, of all species, could score so highly on the standard exam." Jason blinked, taken aback by the professor's accusatory tone. I studied," he said, feeling a flush of defensiveness rising in his cheeks. "I worked hard, just like anyone else." Zyloth let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "Don't lie to me," he snarled, taking a step closer to Jason. "No human could have achieved what you did, not without some kind of help. Did you cheat? Did you have some kind of inside information?" Jason's eyes widened in shock and anger. "No," he exclaimed, his voice rising in indignation. "I would never cheat. I earned my score, fair and square." Zyloth shook his head, his gaze searching Jason's face for any sign of deceit. "Then how?" he demanded. "How did you do it? What's your secret?" Jason took a deep breath, trying to collect his thoughts. He knew that he had to choose his words carefully. Zyloth was clearly on the edge, and the wrong response could push him over. "There is no secret," he said slowly, meeting Xyloth's gaze with a steady calm. I approached the test differently than most students. I didn't rely on memorization or rote learning, like a lot of the other species do." Xyloth frowned, his brow furrowing in confusion. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice losing some of its manic edge. Jason hesitated, trying to find the right words to explain. "Humans, we're good at seeing patterns, at making connections between seemingly unrelated things," he said. "We're creative, intuitive. We don't just rely on logic and facts. We use our imaginations, our gut instincts." Xyloth stared at him, his expression shifting from suspicion to a kind of reluctant fascination. But that's not how the test is designed," he said, shaking his head. "It's meant to measure raw cognitive ability, not creativity or intuition." Jason shrugged. "Maybe that's the problem," he said quietly. "Maybe the test is too narrow, too focused on a certain kind of intelligence. Maybe it's missing something important." Xyloth was silent for a long moment, his gaze distant and thoughtful. I never considered that," he said at last, his voice soft and almost wondering. "I always assumed that the Zorganians, the Vailians, the other elite species, that we had a monopoly on true intelligence. But maybe I was wrong." He looked up at Jason, his eyes clear and intense. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice heavy with a kind of reluctant respect. "I misjudged you and your species. I let my own biases and preconceptions blind me to the truth." Jason felt a rush of relief and gratitude wash over him. He had been afraid that Xyloth might never see past his own prejudices, but here he was, admitting his mistakes and opening his mind to new possibilities. "It's okay," Jason said, offering the professor a tentative smile. "I know that humans are still new to the galactic stage, and that we have a lot to prove. But I believe that we have something valuable to offer. A different way of thinking, a fresh perspective." Xyloth nodded slowly, a glimmer of excitement and determination growing in his eyes. "I want to learn more," he said, his voice gaining strength and conviction. "I want to study the unique cognitive abilities of humans, to understand how they can be harnessed and integrated into the larger galactic intelligence framework." Jason grinned, feeling a rush of pride and purpose. "I'm in," he said, holding out his hand to the professor. "Let's show the galaxy what humans can really do." Xyloth took his hand, gripping it firmly. For the first time in months, he felt a sense of clarity and direction. A new path forward, one that could change everything. Together, they would explore the untapped potential of the human mind. And in doing so, they might just reshape the very fabric of the galactic community itself. A new understanding. In the months that followed, Professor Xyloth and Jason worked tirelessly to unravel the mysteries of human cognition. They spent long hours in the lab, running tests and simulations, analyzing data and discussing theories. At first, progress was slow. The Zorganian scientific establishment was resistant to the idea that humans could possess cognitive abilities that were in any way superior to their own. Many dismissed Xyloth's research as a waste of time, or even a dangerous distraction from more pressing concerns. But Xyloth refused to be deterred. With Jason's help, he began to publish papers and give lectures on his findings, slowly but surely winning over skeptics and allies alike. As their work gained traction, other researchers from across the galaxy began to take notice. Some were intrigued by the idea of studying human cognition, seeing it as a new frontier in the field of psychology. Others were more cautious, warning that the humans were still a largely unknown quantity and that their unpredictable nature could pose a threat. A new understanding. In the months that followed, Professor Xyloth and Jason worked tirelessly to unravel the mysteries of human cognition. They spent long hours in the lab, running tests and simulations, analyzing data and discussing theories. At first, progress was slow. The Zorganian scientific establishment was resistant to the idea that humans could possess cognitive abilities that were in any way superior to their own. Many dismissed Zyloff's research as a waste of time, or even a dangerous distraction from more pressing concerns, but Zyloff refused to be deterred. With Jason's help, he began to publish papers and give lectures on his findings, slowly but surely winning over skeptics and allies alike. As their work gained traction, other researchers from across the galaxy began to take notice. Some were intrigued by the idea of studying human cognition, seeing it as a new frontier in the field of psychology. Others were more cautious, warning that the humans were still a largely unknown quantity and that their unpredictable nature could pose a threat to the established order. But Zyloff and Jason pressed on, driven by a shared passion for understanding and a deep belief in the potential of the human mind. And slowly but surely, their efforts began to bear fruit. Their breakthrough came in the form of a series of groundbreaking experiments that demonstrated the unique problem-solving abilities of the human brain. Using advanced neuroimaging technology, they were able to show how humans used a combination of logic, creativity, and intuition to tackle complex challenges in ways that no other species could match. The results sent shockwaves through the scientific community. Suddenly, the idea that humans could be intellectual equals, or even superiors, to the most advanced alien races didn't seem so far-fetched. As the evidence mounted, more and more researchers began to flock to Zyloff and Jason's lab, eager to learn from and collaborate with the unlikely pair. Together, they launched a new field of study, one that sought to unlock the full potential of human cognition and apply it to the greatest challenges facing the galaxy. Years passed, and Jason graduated from the academy with the highest honors. He went on to become a respected diplomat and ambassador, using his unique perspective and problem-solving skills to bridge the gap between human and alien cultures. As for Zyloff, he continued his research into human cognition, but with a newfound respect and appreciation for the species he had once dismissed. He became a vocal advocate for greater cooperation and understanding between humans and the wider galactic community, arguing that their unique strengths and perspectives were essential to solving the complex problems that faced them all. And as the galaxy watched, a new era began to dawn, one in which humans and aliens worked side by side, learning from each other and pushing the boundaries of what was possible. It was a future that none could have predicted, but one that held infinite promise for all the species of the cosmos. Looking back, Zyloff knew that his journey from skeptic to believer had been a long and difficult one. There had been times when he had doubted himself, when he had wondered if he was chasing an impossible dream. But in the end, it had all been worth it. To see the look of wonder and excitement on his students' faces as they grappled with the mysteries of human cognition, to know that he had played a part in unlocking a new frontier of knowledge and understanding. That was a feeling that could never be replaced. As he stood at the podium, delivering a keynote address to a packed auditorium of scientists and dignitaries from across the galaxy, Zyloff felt a sense of pride and purpose that he had never known before. He looked out at the sea of faces before him, human and alien alike, and knew that he was witnessing the dawn of a new era, one in which the boundaries between species and cultures would blur and fade away, replaced by a shared sense of curiosity, discovery, and wonder. And as he began to speak, he knew that he would spend the rest of his life working to make that future a reality. For himself, for his students, and for all the generations yet to come. The end. I hope you enjoy this 5-part science fiction story about an alien professor learning to understand and appreciate the unique cognitive abilities of a brilliant human student. Let me know if you have any other questions or if there's anything else I can assist with.